Hello, everyone, and welcome, Debra. I'm so glad to have you here today talking about your amazing program, Yes to Success, and your relaunch that's going to be coming up in June. And so thanks for taking the time and these quarantine times where we're sitting home and, reflecting on what do we want to create newly. And here you are creating a brand new relaunch of your program. So welcome, everyone. I'd like to introduce Debra, and then we'll get started right into the interview. Debra Poneman, for those of you who don't know, is a pioneer in the world of transformation. Since the early 1980s, through her Yes to Success seminars, Debra has given tens of thousands of people around the world the tools and technique to create lives of true and lasting success. I can speak to that for myself. And decades before the internet made communication instantaneous, Debra's seminars were being taught in Norway, England, Ireland, Singapore, Canada, and South Africa, as well as dozens of US cities. Her Yes to Success graduates went on to become mega successful entrepreneurs, New York Times bestselling authors, millionaires, billionaires, and some of the most recognized names in the world of transformational leadership, which she'll share with you later in this interview. Debra is considered the mentor to the mentors. And she also was an in-house trainer with companies such as McDonnell Douglas, Mattel Toys, and Xerox Management Group, at a time when it was practically unheard of for women to be corporate trainers. Debra has appeared in print throughout the United States and on TV networks, including ABC, NBC, Fox, and on shows from coast to coast, including Good Morning New England, Chicago Today, and Mid Morning LA. In 1988, at the height of her success, with her Yes to Success book in the hands of a top agent, and in the midst of negotiations of her national TV show, Debra, true to her own teaching of following your heart, walked away from her career and disappeared from the public eye for over 20 years when she decided to live her true passion and become a full-time mom at home. With her daughter now a successful chiropractor and her son an Emmy-nominated filmmaker, philanthropist, and MBA agent, Debra is once again traveling the world, sharing the universal secrets of how to live a life of true and lasting success. Debra, thank you once again for being here today. I'm so excited to have you. You have been a gift to me. I met you on the heels of going through something super traumatic and something that was life-altering to me. And it was when I joined your Year of Miracles, which was 4 years ago. And I remember our first exchange, and I am just beyond blessed to have you in my life. You are true to your word, and everything that you do just brings about success and light to others. And for that, I'm grateful. I wouldn't be where I am today without your contributions, without your insights, without your amazing wisdom. So thank you.
Well, it is my pleasure. I remember first meeting you too, and you're such a lighthouse. Who is this woman? And especially because it was on the heels of that traumatic event, and how you took that traumatic event and turned it around to be a contribution to the world. You are a constant inspiration to me as well.
Thank you. Thank you. It's hard to believe it's been 7 years. It's been 7 years this week since that whole thing happened. For those of you who don't know, our listeners today, I was standing 15 feet from the finish line of the Boston Marathon when the first of two explosions went off, and it completely shattered me to the core and turned me inside out and upside down. And it was a pretty challenging time for several years. And when I was introduced to your Year of Miracles and participated in the program, which I've now been a member of for 4 years, my life just completely transformed. And I am so grateful for the teachings and how I've applied them in my life, because today I actually am in a state of peace, which is miraculous, especially as we're both sitting here in our homes, quarantined because of this pandemic. So, it's It's just an interesting time that we find ourselves in.
Yes, it is. And this quarantine time has caused us to be very creative. Like, didn't I transform should I tell everybody the truth? My bedroom
Absolutely. Absolutely.
into a studio. I think I did a good job, right?
I think you did a great job. See, this is where you get creative and you just find ways to bring success no matter what you have.
Yes, yes, absolutely. We say yes to success.
Absolutely. So can you please share with us, how you founded your incredible Yes to Success program and the struggles that you experienced before you launched it?
Yeah, I love that. It is kind of a tongue twister, isn't it? Yes to success. But
YTS, YTS.
And by the way, the way I got that name of the company, Yes to Success, you don't know this, but when I founded my company, it was just for women. It was called Successful Woman Unlimited.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, little known fact. But what happened was after I taught it for like a year, I looked out at the audience and it was at least half men. And I thought, boy, these men are brave to come to something called Successful Woman Unlimited. And I thought, to be fair to them, I'm going to change the name. And I had a contest, name the company contest. And the person who came up with Yes to Success was the winner. So that's how we got that tongue twister of a name. But the way I started my company was, it's a long story. I could start from the day I was born, but I'm going to spare you that. And I will just start from when I was in my teens. I started transcendental meditation. And when I was 19, I decided I wanted to become a teacher. And I went off to teacher training. And when I came back, I taught meditation. I did go to college part-time and then I transferred to Maharishi International University when it opened up in 1974. But I pretty much devoted myself to teaching meditation and working at the university and studying at the university while I worked. And around 1979, so everybody can calculate how old I am, knock yourself out. In 1979, I realized that woman does not live by mantra alone and that I needed to actually make some money because it was a nonprofit, right? And because I needed health insurance and car insurance, and it would have been nice even to have a car to insure. So I thought, okay, I was living in a community in Fairfield, Iowa. I thought, I've got to leave here and I've got to just go out and make a lot of money so I could come back and do what I love to do. So, the expression, we make plans and God laughs. So I moved to LA in order to make money. God had a big yuck over it because I started selling investments because I thought that's how people make money. I didn't think about what made me happy, what made my heart sing. I thought, how am I going to make a lot of money? However, what we think we're doing, like I thought I was going to LA in order to sell investments to come back. But why we think we're doing something is not necessarily why we're doing it, because there's a master plan. It's just like you went to the finish line to watch the Boston Marathon, but there was another plan. That thing happened that completely changed your life and put you on a completely different trajectory as to how you're contributing now to the planet. So I go to LA, I start selling investments. I'm a dismal failure. I mean, it was not my thing. But one night, somebody in my office asked me if I wanted to go to a money seminar. I thought, oh, yes, let me learn something that maybe I'll make a sale. Okay. So I go to this event and I walk in. I thought it was going to be all people in suits, but it was like the new age crowd. And because it was the learning annex, which I really didn't even know what that was. And the guy was speaking about the law of attraction. This was 1980. And he said that the way to make money is not necessarily to have, skill at developing a portfolio or even, working hard. He said it's raising your vibration to the level that prosperity could come into your life. Because why is it that one person has a job and another person has the same job, and one person is making a ton of money and the other person is just struggling? And he said, and the way you raise your vibration is, one, help other people become wealthy and successful. By doing that, you open yourself up to prosperity. And he said, stop talking about how poor you are, because we're like tuning forks. And if you're talking, you are vibrating poor. Oh, I'll never get out of debt. I don't know I'm going to pay the bills. I'll never this. I'll never that. This is so bad. You vibrate bad. You vibrate poor. You vibrate poverty. And there is no way that wealth can come into your life, because vibration, you're a vibrational being. And they even prove that in the movie, What the Bleep. It's proven by science that we're vibrational beings and like attracts like. And he said, no matter what your financial situation is, if you talk about the prosperity that is to come and you paint word pictures of what life is going to be like, and you know that it's going to be that way when all the prosperity starts pouring in, whenever your words are, you start vibrating. And then it opens you to the energy so that can actually come in. Anyway, bottom line is that I was blown away. I thought, the world needs to hear this. And it was a perfect storm, because I believe that the basis to success is having inner silence. And I had that down in spades. I mean, I meditated when I was on my teacher training course for 6 months at a time. I would meditate 8-10 hours a day. At that point, I was only meditating about an hour a day. But I had that silence. Trying to build the foundation, a building of your life without having a foundation of silence, it's kind of like building a building without a foundation. Mm-hmm. So I had the silent foundation, but now I had to build this glorious building. And now I'm learning all these ways that we could harness the energy of the universe to create success in the outer world. So I quit my job. Everybody's, oh, you quit your job? Well, remember, I hadn't sold any investments anyway, so I was no hero, believe me. And I started studying the great masters of success and prosperity, like Napoleon Hill. He wrote Think and Grow Rich, and Wallace Wattles, and Florence Shinn, and Earl Nightingale, and Catherine Ponder. And I realized that there was a science to creating success. And so what I did was I put together a seminar, and I used the principles that I teach. What I learned and then I teach, and that is, when you have an idea that fills a need or answers fills a gap or answers a need in the world, that idea came to you because you're the one that's supposed to manifest it. If the idea didn't come to me, one person wants to grow orchids, another person wants to go to massage school, another person wants to do speaker training, another person wants to teach leadership, another person wants to write a book on overcoming obstacles. I didn't have any of those ideas, but they did. And I believe that the Creator whispers in the ear of the person that is the best vehicle for manifesting that thing on earth. Okay. And I believe that the Creator, the God of your understanding, whispers in your ear at the time that it's needed on the planet. Okay, I need that. I mean, God can't come down and open up a gluten-free bakery, and start kneading the dough. So whispers into somebody's ear, gluten-free bakery, and down in this area of Chicago, okay, in Logan Square, whatever. So, but if you don't manifest it, then that idea is going to go to somebody else, because the Creator needs it at that time. And I know everybody who's listening has probably had an experience of having a great idea, not manifesting it, and then a year later or 2 years later, somebody else has, and they're like, oh, that was my idea. Well, yeah, you had first dibs, but guess what? You didn't do anything, and the Creator needed it. So number one, I knew that it was mine because it came to me. Start a seminar company called Yes to Success, although it was Successful Woman Unlimited at the time. And the other thing is, don't go around telling everybody what you're going to do, because what happens is, and again, probably everybody who's listening has had a great idea, told everybody what they were going to do, and they never did it, because a couple different things will happen. Number one, the discouragement committee will show up and tell you all of the reasons why your idea will not work. And it puts a damper, it closes that channel, that light, it dims your light, it crushes the seed before it even has a chance to grow. So keep that seed safe and warm inside. Don't keep on exposing it to people, especially people have that tendency to be the discouragement committee. But the other thing that happens is if you tell too many people, the energy dissipates. You got to keep that steam in the kettle until it's ready to manifest, and then it has to burst open and manifest as the success of your idea. So I didn't tell anybody what I was going to do. And the other thing is, don't wait until you think you're ready, because there is never going to be a time where everything is perfectly in place. We live in a relative universe. There are always going to be loose ends. Not like, oh, when the kids are grown, when I get the inheritance, when the divorce is final, no, right?
No.
Because there's always going to be something else that's going to pop up. It's like the heads of a hydra. You get one under control, then you have another excuse that pops up. The idea came to you because you were supposed to manifest it. So bottom line is, and the other thing I tell people to do is just go ahead and take a step from which there's no turning back. You got to do that. If you just got to push yourself a little bit. So my step from which there was no turning back is, remember, this is 1980. I put up posters. Debra Poneman to speak on success, Santa Monica Public Library. And as soon as I put up the posters, the discouragement committee showed up, but I had taken a step from which there is no turning back. I couldn't back out now. I had put up the posters. And even though the discouragement committee said nobody's going to believe it, crazy idea, like your thoughts create your reality, I went to the Santa Monica Public Library and there was standing room only. And within a few short years, my seminars were being taught by my reps all over the world, and that was decades before the internet made international communication instantaneous. And I taught it all over the U.S. And some of our friends, like Marci was one of my students, my co-founder of Your Year of Miracles. She was actually my secretary. She came up to me after one of my Yes to Success seminars and said, "Can I work for you?" She was so cute. Can I work for you? I said, "Well, you're in graduate school." "I'll quit." Anyway, and the rest is history. So I know that was a long answer to a short question, but I hope it was helpful.
Absolutely. Can you talk a little, so from what you said, it sounded like you really did this like on a shoestring budget. So, here you thought, going out to make money, you were going to go into investment, and then you realized, no, you had an inner knowing in your heart. God whispered to you, to go out and create and teach success programs based upon what you had learned. So how did you invest a lot of money in that? How did you do that?
I had nothing. I was driving a beat up 10-year-old Chevy Bel Air that my aunt had left me when she died. And it's like, who am I to be teaching people how to be wealthy and successful when I drove that car and I was broke? But the idea came to me, so it must be me that was supposed to manifest it. But the truth is that when you do follow your heart, two things. One is, I'm not one of those people that says leap and the net will appear. I'm not, actually. You'd think I would be, but I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
What I say is take a step towards your dream. It says dream above your head, dream, every single day. So if I had the luxury of having a husband, he didn't make a lot of money, but he made enough so that we could survive, right, on the money that he made. But so thank you. Number one, my first husband, whose name is Mark, and he's a doll. And so I could pursue my dream because I had a little bit of financial stability. But even if you don't, even if you still have to go to work every day and you have a dream, it's not going to be that one day you won't have to go to work again and then you could pursue your dream. Every day, do not lay your pretty little head on the pillow until you have taken a step closer to your dream. Maybe you want to write a book. You've written your own wonderful book, and then the book with your gorgeous nieces, and which was a joy to contribute to. And anyway, so here's the deal. Let's say it's a book. Do not go to bed until one day you write the introduction. One day you call a bunch of people to see if they'll write the preface for you. One day you write out the table of contents. One day you do research on, let's say it's on, how to make ceramic bowls. One day you do research on all the greatest people who have ever made ceramic bowls. And then what's going to happen is that project is going to get a life of its own, and the momentum is going to go. Don't stop, keep going, don't give up, don't let weeks go by without contributing to that project, whatever it is. And then you get the agent, and then they get the whatever, however you do it. And next thing you know, you're a best-selling author. And every day when you go to work, don't go to work with, I can't believe I have to go to this stupid job. Thank you, God of my understanding, for giving me this job that gives me the money so that I could support myself, so that I could work on my passion project. And then one day you will be able to say goodbye to the job, because that other thing is going to have the momentum to now carry you. But so I say every day you just take a step closer to your dream.
So, I'm thinking right now, I'm thinking of an analogy, right, of a garden, right? So you've got this seed called the thought, right? So you've got a thought, which is a seed, and it's just that, it's just a seed. But if you don't tender to that seed or water the garden, if you were to really plant the seed, then exactly, it's going to wither and die, or you're going to be like putting it on life support, in hopes that it will come back to life again. And so what I hear you saying is like, yes, you have the thought, but how important action is, even if it's one small step in that direction. Because the other piece that happens in that action is like, you've got excitement and momentum, and it's like, and you're starting to cultivate that energy and frequency, and to be able to manifest that into fruition. That is the key, is to being able to just take, even if there's one small step forward. And the more that you do that, soon enough, next thing you know, you will have, create or written a chapter of that book that you've been wanting to write. An agent may show up for you to, collaborate with and publish your book with. But once you continue to be in action is when I feel opportunities really start to open up.
You are so right. That is so brilliant, Jen, because what happens is that if you just, first of all, when you tell everybody what you're going to do, forget about it. You're just letting the steam out of the kettle. But if you keep it inside and you're working on it, every day you're doing all of us, because then the creator sees you're serious about it. You're not just a talker. That expression, those who talk don't do, those who do don't talk. Okay. And the other reason why we don't go in the direction of our dreams is we're so afraid of failure. And it's like, you got to fail. If you're not failing, you are not trying, you are not living, you are not thinking big enough, And I know, what's her cute name? Lisa Nichols says, if you don't scare yourself every day, then you are not dreaming big enough. Right? So what you need to do is you got to do those things that scare you. Approach somebody to write a testimonial for your book. You're like, you got to do things that scare you every day if you really want to get to the dream. But what happens is that when you do start moving forward, the creator sees that you're just not a talker, but you're serious about this. And then all of these synchronicities start to happen. They're not going to happen if you're just talking about the book that you're going to write. No, because the creator doesn't really believe that you're serious about it.
And I have a concept about failure. I think that there is no failure unless you're sitting on the sidelines and not actually moving forward in the direction that your creator in your heart has brought into fruition, into your thoughts. And so, I look at it as mistakes are actually our learning ground. And when we can actually embrace being imperfectly perfect, like, the sky's the limit. Like, you know what? You might stumble. You will actually, not you might, you will stumble and fall, but that's how we learn. That's how we get up. It actually, for me, creates resiliency. It creates strength. It's how we continue to evolve and grow. So if the only failure is failure not to participate, failure not to take action, you're sitting on the sidelines hoping that it's going to come to your doorstep, well, you could be waiting a long time.
Good luck with that. And also the only other thing is, if you fall down, not getting up, like giving up, you know? And if we look back at the challenging times in our lives, and even when people look back at this time, the time of the coronavirus, I think we're going to look back at it as one of the greatest blessings of our lives, because so many people have reevaluated their lives. I mean, you know, it's like that expression, God has sent us to our room to think about what we've done. It really is true. It's like we have time to reflect on what we've done, take a pause, and see what we want to do differently. But if you look back on your life, those things that looked like, you know, tragedies or failures or whatever, they were probably some of the greatest moments and the greatest gifts.
I have come to realize that all of the traumatic experiences I've been through now, you know, where I am today, is they are the greatest gifts in my life, and they were the biggest teachers, and I learned a lot of wisdom, and it brought me home. Actually, it brought me back to my authentic self, and really, you know, called forth what I wanted to do and what my desires were, and not living into what someone else wanted me to do or be. You know, and so I think that these are all wake-up calls. And I think the other piece is we have an opportunity, right? It's about mindset. Mindset plays a role in anything we create. And we can choose to look at these times in a fear-based mindset, like, oh my gosh, you know, it's doom and gloom. And I get it. You know, there are people out there that are in that space. I have been in that space numerous times before. Fortunately, I have a new perspective and new understanding now, so I'm not there any longer. But I had to learn through that. I spent most of my life in fear. I was afraid of my own shadow. You wouldn't necessarily know that, but it was. I had this, but I had to train my brain to focus on the good. And in the beginning, it was not easy. It was not easy. Like, you know, people sit there and go, good out of this pandemic? Yeah, it seems audacious to even ask that question, right? But if you look at it, pollution, like our air is cleaner. You can actually see LA for the first time in years. You can see the Himalayan mountains for the first time in 30 years. You know, you can hear the birds that are chirping louder, and they're coming out. Like, you know, that's just happens to be one of the many things I see. But if you reprogram your brain to look for the good and look for the opportunities, they're right there. And that's also part of manifestation as well.
Yeah, and I'll tell you another way to make the best out of what's going on right now, if I may.
Absolutely.
You know, for the last few weeks, or even, I guess we're moving into months now, our in-trays and the airwaves have been overflowing with advice from experts sharing their best thinking on how to deal with this situation, how to manage our time and our finances and our lost revenues and our payrolls and our kids at home. And there are many profound and helpful ideas, but the truth is, nobody's really an expert at how to thrive during a pandemic of this magnitude. No one, because none of us has ever done this before. I mean, unless we were alive during the Black Plague, you know, in 1347. But I mean, you look really good, but I don't think you were alive.
I was not there.
1347. And we're all offering our best thoughts, but nobody has all the answers. I mean, people tell you what to do, but like during the Black Plague, which is the last time this happened, no one said, oh, just do your business online at home. You know, we don't have a precedent. But what has been around for millennium are ways to find strength when you think you have none. What's been around for millennium, ways to find hope when things look bleak, ways to strengthen your emotional immunity. So if you're feeling depressed, or if you're feeling fearful, or if you're feeling hopeless, do what psychologists and metaphysicians for thousands of years have said that this works. And I'll tell you what it is. You wake up in the morning and you think, how can I give? How can I serve? How can I uplift somebody today? I mean, it's been scientifically documented that when people they do charitable acts, or they volunteer, or they write a check to support a cause, or they just do a random act of kindness, I mean, just call a friend who you haven't talked to in years. What I did the other day is I sent a bunch of my friends these beautiful candles with words on them, like hope and love and strength, and just notes saying, I'm thinking of you at this time. That's all. But when you do an act of kindness, it actually triggers the release of oxytocin, which is the feel-good hormone. So that results in reduced anxiety levels and your cortisol levels, which of course is a stress hormone when you do random acts of kindness, go way down. It's been scientifically proven. It's been scientifically proven that when you do acts of kindness, it causes a reduction in heart disease and pain and depression, and it strengthens your immunity. It gives what's called the giver's high. So what I say to people is, stop watching the news, because what happens when you watch the news is the stress hormone goes way up. You feel fear, you feel contraction. I promise you, if there's any news that you need to know, it will come to you. Trust me, somebody will tell you if you need to know it. If you're going to watch TV, watch those things about like that show that was on Saturday night with all of the different artists. Lady Gaga put it on, but in between each artist were these touching stories. You know, they showed when somebody got rid of the virus and was left the hospital, how all of the nurses and doctors would line the hallways and clap for them and cheer for them. I mean, you know, or the little, you know, the kids who were playing their violin on the sidewalk so that their old neighbor could, you know, their elderly neighbor could, and there's so many uplifting things, but the news is not one of them. And what happens is that when you watch good things or you do random acts of kindness, it actually releases endorphins in the brain, and it gives you what's called that helper's high. So, and I'll tell you one other thing. If you're not going to do random acts of kindness for yourself or for the recipient, by the way, you get more than the recipient. That's also been proven in scientific studies. But do it for the world, because if we're all tense like this and full of fear, it radiates out. And if we have a whole world of people who are tense and full of fear, our world is going to come crumbling down. But if we look at the beauty and we look at the goodness and we look at the grace and we look at all of those people in New York City at 7 o'clock, you know,
yes,
right, cheering and cheering each other on. And you see how much goodness is in the world. I think I've seen more goodness in the world over the last 6 weeks than I have in my entire life. I mean, every time my cousin, I actually live with my wonderful cousin, and she likes to watch TV. And when I walk past the TV, I get mesmerized because they're showing all these acts of kindness that people are doing. I've never seen it before. That's what we need to focus on. And that's what's going to get us through this. And so don't add to the stress, add to the upliftment. Think, how can I serve? How can I give? Do random acts of kindness. Just be creative, and you'll help yourself, you'll help the recipient, and you'll help the world.
That's perfect. I want to segue into something that's perfect, right? So I want you to, and I don't want to bring us down here, but I want to talk about, you know, how words have a role, right? And an important role in whether we're rising up or falling. And would you share with us your near-death experience and the impact of what words had on you physically when you were in the hospital?
Yes, I know you love that story.
I do. It's so profound because here, you know, I'll let you tell it. You tell it better.
Well, it's so cute. I just love you.
I love you too.
So anyway, so for years, for decades, I taught the power of our thoughts to create a reality, just like I learned for the very first time when I went to that first seminar, and the guy said, we're vibrational beings. And if we think negatively, negativity comes into our life. And we think positively, positivity is drawn into our life. And I always knew that. And I always taught it. So one day, it was about 4 years ago. Well, it's been a long time. Or maybe more. Yes, it was actually even more. It's about 5 years ago. I usually, when I get a flu or a sore throat or something, it doesn't manifest. I just take a bunch of echinacea, golden seal, you know, zinc C, electrolytes, knock that baby out before it takes hold of my body. So I really am never sick. But this time I felt a little like I was getting sick. I did all those things and I just got sicker and sicker and sicker. I felt it first on a Monday. And by Saturday, I'll never forget it. I'm lying in bed. I lived by myself at the time. My husband and I were separated. That was husband number 2. And I were separated, who I also love, and we're still best friends. I was lying there by myself and I thought, I could die here and nobody would know because I was that sick. So I did what any intelligent person would do. I called my favorite healer and I said, I think I might be dying. And he looked in on me, and I know it's a little woo-woo for some, but he said, okay, I can help you, but you have to promise me you'll do exactly what I tell you to do. And I said, I could hardly speak. I said, anything. And he said, okay, so you'll do what I tell you? I said, yes. He said, call 911 immediately. And I couldn't even open my eyes to dial the phone. And he said, okay, I will do it. They will be there in minutes. So I'm lying in bed. I couldn't get up. They had to actually break in because I couldn't lift myself out of bed. Anyway, they come into my room. They asked me what hospital I want to go to. So I said Evanston, and they commiserated. They didn't think that I was going to live for the 11 minutes that it would take to get me to that hospital. So they took me to a hospital around the corner. My blood pressure was something like 52/28. Should not be alive, right? So they bring me into the emergency room. By the way, it turned out that I had just come home from an international, I was in a developing country, and I had a sepsis. And a sepsis is a bacteria in your blood, and you have about 50% chance of living if they find a bacteria. I had 2 bacteria in my blood. And so I was lying on this gurney, and they were rushing around trying to save my life. And also you could lose limbs from it. It's not a pretty thing. And they're trying to save my life. And I started leaving. I started dying. And I felt myself like going to the other side. And then I realized that when my eyes were open, I could see everybody rushing around trying to save my life. And when my eyes were closed, I could also see them. But I saw that every movement that every person in that room was making was guided by a light. Like even the doctor's hands were guided by the light. When a nurse would hang up an IV bag, it was guided by the light. As a matter of fact, one of the nurses was putting up an IV bag and she kind of stumbled and she like dropped it on the gurney and everybody like shot her daggers. But I saw that when she bent down to pick it up, somebody else saw a monitor that they had to adjust that saved my life. And I realized that when people say there are no mistakes in the universe, I saw that there are no mistakes in the universe, that everything is in fact perfect and everything is for our greatest good ultimately, and it is guided by a light. And so then what happened, I'm like, oh my gosh, there really are no mistakes in the universe. Everything just fits together like the cogs on a fine-tuned watch. Well, by that time, my husband, my ex-husband, but still my best friend, had arrived because the healer had called him and told him to get his butt over to the hospital. And it didn't look like I was going to live. It looked bad. And he was sitting on a chair over to my left, and I saw these tears rolling down his face. And I saw a nurse go over to him and put her hand on his shoulder and say, don't worry, she's going to be fine. And I saw that when she said she's going to be fine, the words she's going to be fine, accompanied by this pink light, it was kind of like a My Little Pony, like rainbow. It was sparkly. It went out of her mouth and into my body. She's going to be fine. And it strengthened every cell in my body. She's going to be fine, made me fine. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what I've been teaching all these years is true. Your word does manifest in the 3rd dimension reality. Your word is your wand. And then the doctor came in, he looked at the monitors, and in this really intense voice, he goes, get her blood pressure up or we are going to lose her. And when he said, we're going to lose her, I saw this thing come out of his mouth, the words come out of his mouth, accompanied by like this brown, gray gunk. It even had a smell. It smelled like a swamp. And
Ooh.
it was just yuck. We're going to lose her. It went out of his mouth into my body, and it took my strength away. And I remember thinking, I've got to survive because I've got to tell people the power of their words, not only for their own life, but how they affect other people. And I remember lying there thinking, God, let me live, and I will never say anything bad about my children again. Because I had these stories about my kids, you know, Daniel's this, and Deanna's this, and Fred is this. And I promise I will never say anything. Actually, I promise I would never say anything bad about anybody again. Just let me live. Well, the good news is I lived.
Yay!
Yay! And the other good news is that we do have power over our destinies. And it's not just our words, it's also our thoughts, because just like the atom is more powerful, like the molecules is more powerful than the cell, and the atom is more powerful than the molecule, and the protons and the neutrons and electrons are more powerful than the atom. Our thoughts are subtler forms of our words. So our thoughts definitely contain energy, and even our thoughts. That's why when you have a thought or you're about to speak something negative, you know what I tell people to say, it sounds so corny, but just say cancel. And then just think of what you really want to have happen in your life and say, voice those words of what you do want. Because I promise you, I saw it with my own eyes when I was halfway between life and death. Your words do have an impact on yourself and others, and do create your reality.
So I've got to ask, so do you occasionally have bad thoughts? Not that there's, good or bad, but do you occasionally have a thought going, that's not really empowering or uplifting? And if you do, what do you do in that moment?
Oh, yes, I do. I am not perfect. I'm almost perfect, but no, we're humans. Okay. Let's face it. We're humans. But if I have a negative thought, like, if somebody wants to engage me in negativity about somebody else, I don't go there. It's frustrating for some of my friends. Because I also know, as you sow, so shall you reap. And, I don't want people talking trash about me. I'm going to not talk trash about anybody else, right? Because the energy comes to me. I don't want that energy on me, right? So I'm not going to put that energy out on anybody else. But sometimes, for example, I'll walk past the TV and I'll see some individuals, and it just makes me want to just like spew. And I find something good to say. I do. I find something good to say. And I'll say, well, you know what? He had a difficult childhood. Or, if you had somebody who always told you were a loser, you might act like that. Whatever it is. Because, you think you're hurting that person. You're not. You're hurting you. And you're empowering that person, actually. And because any attention, whatever you put your attention on, that person is a bad person, you're making that person more of a bad person. Abraham Hicks, wrote, what's the name of the book that they wrote, Abraham Hicks? It's that it's
about manifestation. I forget the actual title at the moment, but it's about manifestation, and it's literally exactly what you're saying, where even our negative thoughts empower the other person because we're putting our focus and attention there. In the meantime, we're disempowering ourselves, right? We're giving away our power to feed something that doesn't serve us or humanity. And frankly, it lowers our vibration and takes us away from the very thing we say we want in our lives. So if you're struggling, I'll say this, in this particular day, if you're struggling to manifest anything in your life, stop and look at your thoughts and your words and where you're focusing your time and attention.
Absolutely. And that, well, two things. One is, that old story about the Native American grandfather who says, I have two wolves inside of me fighting, and that we all have those two wolves. And one is the wolf of, that is mean and angry and vindictive and lies and is arrogant, and then the other wolf is fighting kind and good and loving and charitable, and the two wolves are always fighting, you know, to dominate in my life. And the grandson said, well, which one is going to win, grandfather? And he said, the one you feed. So we just don't want to feed it. And the truth is that, again, I slip up. Hello, I slip up. And you know what I do when I notice it? And I cancel and I say what I want. But if I even forget to do that, or I go on, you know, some kind of rampage, afterwards, I just put my hand on my heart and say, it's okay. I forgive you. You know, you do the best you can. But you do develop neural pathways. You know, science says that when you repeat a behavior over and over and over, like bad-mouthing people, the reason why it feels so good is because you've created a neural pathway, and it secretes some hormone, the feel-good hormone, when you do it. And so what you want to do, you have to break that habit and replace it with a new neural pathway, so that when you say something good about somebody, that's when you have that emission of that feel-good hormone. So, you know, everybody slips up. We're not perfect. You just forgive yourself, but your intention is to feed the good wolf.
Feed the good wolf and be kind to yourself in the, you know, if you end up feeding the bad wolf occasionally, right? Don't be upset with yourself. You know, we are human, you know, things happen, we get triggered, and the key is the quicker we can recognize it and acknowledge it, change it, and, you know, and be kind and forgiving to ourselves. And that's when we continue to rise up. Perfect.
Exactly.
So it's been 30 years. You've had 2 beautiful children. They've now gone off to create amazing lives for themselves. And you decide you're going to go out and do a relaunch. Why?
Well, because the principles that I taught in Yes to Success, that I first, and actually I have to tell you, it's been 40 years, because I first found Yes to Success in 1980. And so this is actually the 40th anniversary. And the principles that I teach never get old, because they're universal principles. It's like, you read Think and Grow Rich, that was written almost 100 years ago. There isn't a word in that book that isn't pertinent to our lives today. Okay. And the same with what I teach in Yes to Success. All of the principles I teach are timeless. They will bring you inner success. They will bring you outer success. They will change your life for the better. They will help you create new neural pathways. I mean, I give much more specific advice as to how to do that. But when I teach Yes to Success, I have seen what it's done for people's lives. Like you said in my introduction, millionaires, billionaires, household names. But you know, Jen, I've had people who have taken Yes to Success, who had multi-million-dollar jobs and left and went and started an orphanage in Haiti, because they realized that they weren't living true to themselves. So, but I also, what I love about Yes to Success is I don't just teach energetic principles. I teach practical principles. I teach how to manage your time. I teach how to organize your space. I teach, you know, practical bank account things, because we need both in our lives. We need the energetic and we need the practical. So I brought both of those together. But why am I relaunching it right now? I'm relaunching it right now is because I look around, and at this very moment, there are a lot of people who are questioning their lives. They're questioning what they're going to do next. They're questioning what this world is going to look like on the other side of this pandemic. And I said, you know what? Yes to Success will help them create a new life if their old life just ain't going to be there anymore. It will give them the tools that they need to rebuild. And I thought, you know, I can't just go off into the sunset, you know, and live a great life. I have to contribute, and this is the best way that I can contribute to the lives of people around me.
Well, I can say thank you, thank you, thank you. Having been one of your students for several years now, I'm grateful that you are, coming out with a relaunch again, because so many people, I believe, can benefit from the amazing work you did. Would you, by any chance, want to share like a couple of people that did the course back in 1980 and who really were, it kind of, I say this because I know some of the people that came to you back in the very early days were figuring out for themselves, who do they want to be in the world? And they were finding out their own truths, and they weren't famous people at the time, and they were, discovering themselves. Would you like to share a few of them with us?
Sure. Well, it's so funny because you notice I'm not really a name dropper, but because I think that
it would be inspiring, because here's the deal, like we all come from humble beginnings.
Yes.
We start somewhere.
Yes. Well, we mentioned that Marci Shimoff, who is now the #1 nonfiction female best-selling author of all time, selling 16 million chicken soup books. And she got her started. As a matter of fact, her first speaking engagement was when she was my secretary and I got sick. And this is back in 1981 or 82. I caught some kind of flu back then. I didn't just take my echinacea golden seal. I got laid up. And I said, and she says, oh my gosh, we were living in California. We have to cancel your event in New York. I said, no, we don't. She said, well, who's going to do it? And I said, you. Oh, no, I can't speak in front of the crowd. I said, you either speak in front of the crowd or you don't get paid this month. So she went, and she was huge, and she got the bug, and that was it. She went into the training industry. And then Janet Atwood, who is the founder of the Passion Test, same thing. She came to, if you read the book, The Passion Test, the whole introduction was about how she came to my seminar and then followed me around from city to city to city until I hired her to be one of my trainers. And she was well, Janet and Marci always argue who was my first trainer, but let's just say both of them. And so she was my assistant for a while. Actually, when I was about to have my own TV show, she was there with the producers taking notes for me during the discussion, which, I decided not to do because I decided to be a mom at home. But anyway, and then, Phil Town, who was a #1 New York Times bestselling author of Rule Number One, and he had another #1 bestseller, but I can't remember what it was. Steve Farber, who is the founder of Extreme Leadership. As a matter of fact, he stood up at one of my seminars and shared, and I said, stop. He said, what? I said, you should be a speaker. I said, you are such a good speaker. He goes, oh, no. I said, no. You should be a speaker. Now he's also one of the highest paid speakers in the country, going around speaking about love being damn good business, and he's fabulous. And we know Deepak Chopra actually took my seminar 3 or 4 times back in the 80s, and he took it 3 times in Cambridge, and then he actually flew me out to give the seminar to his extended family at his home. And that was when he was he was chief of staff at some hospital in Boston. I can't remember what kind of doctor he was, but I actually have on tape. I had people stand up at the end of each seminar and commit to doing something outrageous. And he committed to writing a book that showed the relationship between Eastern and Western medicine. I have it on tape. I should send it to him. So anyway, on and on, blah, 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 blah.
I think the point I want to make, I personally don't know Deepak, but I do know the others, Steve and Marci and Janet. And I have had an opportunity to work with them and meet with them. And, they'll say, they came from humble beginnings. They were, in the early part of, their careers and where they are today. My point here is it's not about dropping names. It's actually the intention here is to inspire everyone that chooses to listen to this, that, it doesn't matter where you are in your life. If you know it's time to pivot and to change, I encourage you to look at, the program, Yes to Success, which is going to be launching when? June.
It's going to be, yes, June. I'm going to do 3 free videos, And on June 9th, I think 11th and 13th, something like that, they're going to be fabulous. I'm going to and then after that, if somebody wants to sign up for the course, they're absolutely welcome to. If they just want to just enjoy those videos, that is wonderful. Also, I'm also going to have a success, I'm calling it Yes-a-thon, where I'm going to interview a bunch of people and they're going to talk about how they created success in their life and talk about humble beginnings. One of my favorite stories is Janet Atwood, who is now travels around the world, and that developed the #1 tool to help people discover their passions, which is the passion test. She had the idea for that during one of my Yes to Success seminars, but she was so poor when she took Yes to Success that she was actually living at the TM Center, at the Transcendental Meditation Center, which didn't have a shower, and she would climb over a fence to some community center that had showers by their swimming pool to take a shower. That's how poor she was when she first took Yes to Success, and then her whole life kind of turned around. So I got a lot of stories like that. So wherever you are, just like it says right behind Jennifer's head, dream. And if you could dream it, you can do it. Dreaming is the first step. Saying yes is the first step to your dream.
Absolutely. And I know that, for those that are listening, that you are giving away your brand new ebook called The 5 Secrets to a Life of True Success, and which is amazing. And thank you for doing that. And folks can go and download that by going to Yes to Success. We will include that information also at the end of this video. But you can go to yes2success.com. Boy, that is a tongue twister for me today. But yes2success.com, and to download that today. And when you download the book, which is amazing, you will then be on the mailing list. So Debra will be coming out with information about her relaunch in the next several weeks. So I invite you to consider it, because it will be a game changer for you. Any last words of wisdom that you want to say here today? It's just been a pleasure speaking with you, by the way.
Yeah, the only thing that I would say is that, the truth about life is that it's always in the direction of more and more, and that everything really is a gift. And I know that there are people who are having a tough time right now, and I don't want to seem at all that I'm minimizing that, because I know that there are people who are suffering, and my heart completely goes out to them. I hold them in my heart. After I do my meditation in the morning, I actually visualize the world and all its people just filled with light, and I do what I can in the relative world as well. But this too shall pass, and in order for it to pass with more grace, again, how can I serve? How can I give? How can I help other people? Because I promise that is the antidote to fear. That is the antidote to worry. That is the antidote to lack of hope. Give somebody else hope, and it will change your life.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for taking time today. It's been a pleasure as always. So inspiring. Again, Yes to Success. Make sure that you stay tuned for it. It's coming. It's a must-do program. So thank you again.
Thank you. So great to be with you.
It's been great to be with you too.